In the heart of Africa, where the red earth touches the sky and stories are passed like precious jewels from one generation to the next, there lived a man whose legend stretched further than rivers. A man born not in a palace, not in a house, but in a simple clay hut. This is the tale of Kumba, the rich man who never forgot the sound of rain on a leaking roof, nor the warmth of an empty cooking pot. His life would change. Yes, his hands would one day hold gold and diamonds. But his heart remained tied to the dusty village that first heard his cry. But what made Kumba different? What secret lay beneath the very earth he was born upon? And why, even after gaining wealth beyond counting, did he return to the same broken village that once looked at him with pity? Today, we tell you his story, a story of hidden treasure, of betrayal and mercy, of riches and wisdom. A story that asks, what is wealth if not shared? What is a man if not remembered? So sit, child of the earth. Let me tell you of the rich man who was born in a hut. Long before gold adorned his fingers, before merchants bowed as he passed, before his name was whispered in the courts of kings, Kumba was just a boy, born under the cracked roof of a clay hut. The village of Mabani was small, lost between rivers and dust. The people were simple, their lives shaped by the seasons. And in this forgotten corner of the earth, Kumba entered the world with nothing more than his mother's tears and the soft hum of a distant storm. His mother, Mama Salama, was a woman of strong hands and a stronger heart. Widowed before Kumba could walk, she raised him with stories instead of silver, and kindness instead of gold. Every morning, Kumba woke before the sun, fetching water from a stream half a day's walk away. He'd return, balancing clay pots on his small head, never once complaining. At night, when the stars blinked over Mabani, Mama Salama would sit beside the crackling fire and whisper stories of the ancestors. Kumba, she would say softly, riches are not measured by what your hands carry, but by what your heart gives. Kumba believed her, even when other children laughed at his tattered clothes, even when his stomach growled with hunger, even when he saw the merchants from faraway lands riding past the village, their camels heavy with treasure. He believed, but deep inside him, a question always burned. Why had he been born here? Why did he dream of places he'd never seen? Why did he feel destined? One day, under the ancient baobab tree, an elder named Grandfather Bako watched Kumba work. Child, Bako said, his voice like dry leaves, do you know why the strongest trees grow from the poorest soils? Kumba shook his head. Because the roots must fight for every drop. Bako placed a hand on Kumba's thin shoulder. You too will fight. But remember, gold shines brightest when buried deepest. Kumba did not understand, not then. But life has a way of unfolding lessons in its own time. One night, the rain came. Harder than before. The hut's roof cracked open like a broken shell. Kumba and his mother huddled together, their blankets soaked, their fire drowned. The next morning, Kumba stood outside, staring at the ruined hut. He dug his hands into the wet earth and found stone. At first, he thought it was just rock, but something glimmered, a golden shimmer. Hidden under years of dust and roots, he said nothing. Not to his mother, not to the elders, not to anyone, but every night after, when the village slept, Kumba returned to that spot. With bare hands, he dug, carefully, patiently, and what he uncovered would change his life forever. Pause. Soft wind sound beneath his mother's broken hut. Kumba had found a buried chest, carved from wood older than the village, itself bound in iron and sealed with a symbol he had never seen before. He sat beside it, under moonlight, staring, not knowing that within that chest lay not just gold, but a secret a prophecy, a destiny, a river of stories, waiting to awaken. For nights, Kumba sat beside the chest. He traced the ancient symbols with his fingers, wondering if he should tell his mother or grandfather Bako. But something inside him whispered, "Wait." So he waited until the night the storm returned. Lightning tore across the sky. Thunder cracked like war drums. And Kumba, alone beside the buried chest, watched as the storm lit the ancient symbol. It wasn't just carved, it glowed. Blue fire burned along the lines, and Kumba felt no fear. He touched the glowing symbol and the chest. Unlocked, no key, no force, just opened. Inside, he found not gold, not jewels, but something older. Maps, scrolls, a blade, wrapped in cloth, and at the very bottom, pendant, simple, wooden but warm to his touch. As he held it, visions filled his mind, rivers flowing backward, mountains rising from flat lands, villages burning, kings kneeling, and always a voice. "You are the river, Kumba." When he awoke, the storm had passed. The chest sat open beside him, but his heart was no longer the same. He buried the chest again, hiding its contents beneath the earth, and with the pendant around his neck, Kumba returned home. His mother, seeing the strange calm in his eyes, asked nothing. But grandfather Bako, watching from afar, whispered, "So the river wakes." From that day, Kumba changed. His body grew stronger, his mind sharper, his dreams wilder. He began working harder than ever, fetching water, collecting firewood, trading with travelers. But behind every task, a quiet plan grew. He knew he could not stay in Mabani, not forever. The chest, the visions, the voice, they were calling him somewhere. But before he left, he did one thing. Kumba rebuilt his mother's hut with stronger clay, with thicker walls, with love, and then, one morning, without warning, he left with nothing but the pendant, the blade from the chest, and the fire of purpose. Burning in his soul, his journey took him beyond the rivers, into cities, where gold flowed like water, where men measured worth in silver and silk. Kumba arrived as a beggar, but he listened, he learned, and slowly, he traded not goods, but stories. He told tales of a boy who once sat beneath a baobab tree, of a mother whose hut broke under rain, of a chest buried beneath a broken home. People listened, and in return, they gave food, shelter, work. Kumba used every coin wisely. Every gift with gratitude. And soon, small coins became bags. His bags became caravans. His caravans became a kingdom of trade. But wealth did not change him. Each night, he wore the pendant. Each morning, he whispered to himself, "I am the river." And yet, his greatest test was still ahead. For wealth brings not just comfort, it brings envy, and in the shadows of his success, danger stirred. A rival merchant, a jealous king, a betrayal waiting, and Kumba would soon learn. The hardest storms do not fall from the sky, they rise from within. Kumba's name became known, from river traders to mountain kings. People spoke of the man who came from nothing, a man who built a fortune not from war or greed, but from wisdom. He taught villages how to trade. He taught farmers to save. He built roads where none had existed. They called him the merchant of rivers. But wealth does not come without shadows. In the grand city of gold, there ruled a merchant named Sango. Sango was rich long before Kumba arrived. But unlike Kumba, Sango's wealth was fed by lies. He cheated traders, he bribed guards, and when he heard that Kumba, a boy from a forgotten village, was growing richer than him, his heart turned to poison. Esianju invited Kumba to a feast grand, lavish, a trap. Sango, smiled wide, but his eyes burned cold at the feast. Kumba sat among the city's wealthiest golden cups, meats spiced with rare herbs, dancers spinning like flames. Yet, Kumba ate little, drank less. He watched, he listened, and when Sango offered a toast to the boy who thinks he is a king, Kumba only smiled after the feast. Sango's men followed him, blades hidden, whispers sharpened, but Kumba did not return to his home. Instead, he went to the city's poorest streets, to those who had nothing, and there, beneath the broken walls, he began telling stories, not of wealth, not of trade, but of rivers and of storms, of how storms may flood a river. But rivers remember their path. Word spread. Sango's own servants began to listen. Soon, traders once loyal to Sango stopped visiting his stalls. They sought Kumba's wisdom instead. And Sango? He grew desperate. He bribed. He threatened. But every threat he made became a story Kumba told. Every lie he spread became a lesson Kumba shared. Sango's gold could buy silence, but Kumba's stories bought loyalty. And when Sango finally challenged Kumba directly, standing in the city square, shouting accusations, Kumba said nothing. He removed the pendant from around his neck, held it high, and the people fell silent. Then he said, "Gold can flood a city, but rivers eat it." He placed the pendant back and walked away. Sango's empire collapsed. Within weeks, his guards left, his servants scattered, and Kumba. He did not claim Sango's mansion. He gave it to the orphans of the city. A home for the forgotten. He moved on, silent, humble, but behind him, stories flowed. Rivers that fed every village he passed. Yet, not all stories are peaceful. For deep in the desert, beyond the reach of merchants and kings, a shadow watched Kumba's rise, a secret long buried, a truth tied to the chest he once uncovered. And soon, Kumba would learn. Some destinies do not choose kings, they choose rivers. Kumba thought the city of gold would be his greatest challenge, but his true trial lay far beyond, in the desert of forgotten kings. A land where no rivers flowed, where the bones of ancient empires slept beneath dunes. And yet, something called him each night as he slept. The pendant around his neck grew warm. Each morning, the same voice whispered, "To know the river, you must cross the sand." So Kumba prepared. He left behind his merchants, his followers, his name, and, with only his blade, his pendant, and the stories in his heart, he stepped into the desert. Days turned to weeks. Heat burned his skin. Wind scoured his face. Many times, he wished to turn back, but the voice within whispered, "Rivers are born from stone." And so, he pressed on until, at last, he found it. Buried beneath sand and silence, a ruin. A city once mighty, now forgotten, its gates broken, its palaces sunken. But in its center, a single statue, a king crowned not with gold, but with chains. Kumba knew this was the place at the statue's base, ancient words carved deep. Here fell the king who owned the river. Kumba knelt, and as his hand touched the stone, visions filled his mind. A tale, older than his village, older than the rivers of a king who sought to control water itself, who dammed rivers, who hoarded their flow until the land withered, until people starved on, till the rivers rebelled and drowned his kingdom. The statue was all that remained, and now Kumba understood Dada's pendant was once that king's, a symbol not of power, but of warning. He had been wearing not a treasure, but a lesson. He removed the pendant and buried it beside the statue, not as a sacrifice, but as a promise. Let rivers flow where they choose. His journey, he realized, had not been about wealth, not about power, but about freedom, to give, to guide, to not to own. And so, from that day, Kumba took no more gold. He taught, he shared, he built, but he no longer traded for riches. His wealth became the rivers he restored, the wells he dug, the stories he left behind. People no longer remembered his name. They remembered his lessons, and that was enough. But legends say, one day, when rivers run dry, when deserts reclaim the land, a man will come, not wearing gold, not riding elephants, but walking quietly with calloused hands, eyes of storms, and a heart of rivers. And when he comes, people will know the rich man who was born in a hut has returned. Years passed. The boy named Kumba had once chased coins. Now, he walked with purpose far beyond wealth. But rivers, no matter how far they flow, always return to their source. And so did Kumba. One quiet morning, he stood once again before the village, where his life had begun, the humble hut, where his mother had labored alone to birth him amidst the dust. But the village was no longer the place. He remembered. The empty huts had turned into homes. Children played where none once dared. The people who had once looked past him now gathered as family, not as strangers. And yet, they did not recognize him. The rich man wore no crown, no silk, only dust on his skin and wisdom in his eyes. He was no longer a merchant. He was a river. But one person saw him. His mother. She stood, frail but proud, her eyes glistening as he approached. No words passed between them. None were needed. She knew. He embraced her, silently weeping. For years lost, for rivers crossed, for finding his way back. That night, the entire village gathered. Kumba sat beside the great fire as the elders invited him to speak. But instead of telling stories of distant lands and gold, he shared only this: do not measure wealth by what fills your pockets, but by what fills your heart. He spoke of the desert of forgotten kings, of the rivers he had helped uncover, of the cities that had healed through stories, not swords. And finally, he said, the richest man is not the one who owns the river. He is the one who becomes the river. The people sat in silence, their hearts filled more than their hands. The next morning, something strange happened. Kumba left no farewell at sunrise. He was gone. No tracks, no trail. Only the sound of the river, forever flowing. Children told stories of the rich man who walked like water. Mothers whispered his name when blessing their newborns. Fathers built wells in his honor. But Kumba's mother said nothing. She only looked out at the horizon each day, knowing her son was never far. Because rivers always return, and somewhere in some distant village, a stranger would arrive. Not a king, not a merchant. Just a man who talked quietly, who gave generously, who walked away before praise could catch him. A man born in a hut, but remembered as a river. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know where are you watching from. Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye.